The new Jesus Christ, if you will, are these tech CEOs. And here's what we fail to understand. They do not have our best interests at heart. They are not concerned with our emotional well-being. They are not going to comfort us when we're older. They are there, and they play a key component in capitalism, to do anything that is required to get their earnings up 1 cent per share every day. These guys would sleep with their cousin for a nickel. That's their job. Their job is to increase earnings. They're not here to save us. We're supposed to elect people who put in guardrails for them. So everyone is saying or asking me, can we trust Sam Altman? I'm like, no, and we shouldn't have to. We should have regulators putting in guardrails on AI. Sam is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. The latest hero that's going to save us is Dario Amodei. We've decided he's the good guy now. The villain's journey in tech is the same. Some compelling person we think is a wonderful guy, and then we find out that they are doing their job, and that is doing anything they can legally to increase shareholder value, regardless of whether it prevents a tragedy to the commons or not. And then we get angry at them. The journey from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader gets shorter and shorter, but they all follow the same path.
That is Scott Galloway, one of the most followed voices on technology and capitalism in the world, and he has spent years inside the rooms where these decisions get made. He is telling you that the people building the most powerful technology in history are not trying to save you, that they have already built their escape, and that the version of the future they are selling you is not the version they are quietly planning for themselves. Listen to what he says is really going on.
A lot of them have go bags. They have a plan for if shit gets real. If there's a zombie apocalypse or there's a revolution or there's a massive pandemic, they have definitive plans, and they've spent tens of millions of dollars. They meet their pilots at Oakland Airport. They get on their Gulfstream 650. They fly to New Zealand, to Auckland, and they have a bunker built out.
Really?
There's a lot of go plans amongst the wealthy, but I would say amongst billionaires, I would bet conservatively 1 in 3 have some sort of go plan. I think it's mostly catastrophizing and a means of fundraising. Every technology in history goes through a similar arc. There's some catastrophizing, there's some job loss. That increase in productivity results in additional margin, new business opportunities, and employment grows. I don't see any reason why this would be any different. And I think that catastrophizing and talking about this massive destruction in jobs is a way of saying, or justifying the massive investments these companies want enterprises to make in their companies. Because if you look at the amount of capital they have committed and the valuations of these companies, one of two things needs to happen in the next 5 years, at least in the US. There either needs to be $1 trillion in incremental revenue from new products from companies that have licensed AI. We're not seeing a lot of AI moisturizer or cars that are built by AI. I mean, AI plays a role in the background, but it's very hard for companies right now to point to incremental growth or revenues from AI. So in order to justify these valuations, then they have to say, all right, there's going to be massive cost savings or efficiencies. And there's some examples. I think Meta has just announced new layoffs because of efficiencies they're getting with AI targeting. So one of two things needs to happen in the next three years. Either these companies' valuations need to be cut by 50 or 70%, or you need a massive destruction in the labor market that creates tons of efficiencies that their customers can then flow to the bottom line. And I think what the CEOs are saying is that there's going to be massive efficiencies. I also think that you sound more interesting and it makes your technology sound more seminal when you say it's changing the world and we don't know how to control it. And quite frankly, I find it a little bit obnoxious that some of the founders and key figures in AI catastrophize just about the time they take a secondary and peace out to the Côte d'Azur. That's not helpful. I'm Dr. Frankenstein and I've created this monster, but I don't know how to deal with it, so I'm going to go peace out to Saint-Tropez. That's just not very helpful. So the first big fear of catastrophizing is just this unprecedented job destruction. They've been talking about that for 3 years, but let's look at the data. The unemployment rate in the US is 4.5%. Among youth, it's 8.8%. That is slightly below the historical average. The number of new business permits or new businesses started per capita in the United States has doubled in the last 10 years. I don't doubt that there'll be a real dip or a severe V down in certain industries, customer service, probably the legal field. But I believe over the medium and the long term, it's actually going to create more jobs than it destroys. And I think some of the catastrophizing is nothing more than thinly veiled attempt to say my technology is so devastating that it's going to shift society and you should invest at this crazy valuation.
Could you be wrong?
Oh, 100. I'm wrong all the time, Stephen. Ground zero for the job that was going to go away was radiologists. You could scan billions of images, and radiologists, mama, don't let your daughter grow up to be a radiologist because that job's going away. The new job listings for radiologists in 2026 is up. Because what it ends up is that while scanning the image is important, it's a small part of the job. The value out of a radiologist is diagnosing the illness and then coming up with a treatment plan. And that's as important as ever. The number of coders, job listings for coders, year on year is up 11%. So people who understand how to use these technologies, and that demand has gone up because now AI can be applied to almost any startup. Where I will be wrong is if there is sustained job destruction and the new jobs created in new businesses and the employment those jobs create doesn't keep up with new jobs. And there is a scenario. You don't need 100% unemployment like Musk is predicting. At 20% unemployment, the French had a revolution and Weimar Germany turned very ugly. At 20% unemployment, especially among youth, especially young men, tend to get very angry and take to the streets. So you could see a V that's so severe, even if there's a job recovery, if it hits 20% unemployment, that could cause real civil unrest. But I just look at the data, I look at the employment numbers. If you didn't know there was this seminal technology that very smart people were predicting a job apocalypse around, and you just looked at the data, you wouldn't know there's anything going on. The data doesn't reflect that there's some big exogenous meteor coming for the employment market. The job of the CEO now is, it used to be to underpromise and overdeliver. Now it's to overpromise and underdeliver and create a vision that creates cheap capital so you can pull the future forward. My understanding is 3 years ago, we had 1 million autonomous Tesla taxis on the road, and that did not happen. In 2016, Musk said, or 2017, there was going to be, autonomous was 2 years away, driving. So their job is to predict a very exciting future. I also think Musk in particular is very good at saying, look over here as he stuffs a rabbit into a hat. So what is this? The key attribute of an innovator right now is storytelling. And that is to make sure the promise is way ahead of the performance such that you can access cheap capital and pull the future forward. But a lot of this stuff I find is a lot of jazz hands.
So there is one of the sharpest observers of capitalism on the planet telling you the dirty secret of the entire doom industry. The valuations only work if the apocalypse arrives, because if the labor market does not collapse, then the math behind these companies falls apart. So the people running them go on every stage they can find and tell you it is too powerful and too dangerous and impossible to control, and then they quietly fly to the south of France. The fear is not always a warning. Sometimes the fear is the product they are selling. Now listen to who they actually serve while they sell it to you.
2 years ago, I thought Sam had a really good brand because he was out in Congress. He was saying this, he was asking for regulation, it seemed. It has turned unbelievably quickly, unbelievably fast.
He's a proxy for all of AI. I think the greatest brand destruction, other than the US over the last 18 months, has been AI, and also Sam Altman. But we keep falling into this trap over and over. And that is, something happened through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that is, America, its heroes used to be athletes, government officials, and actors. And then there was a dramatic decline in attendance to religious institutions, but people still have really big questions and want sort of an authority or a godlike figure. The closest thing we have to religion is technology. Most people don't understand it. It has a mystical feel to it. I have no idea how my phone works. I can ask it anything and it comes back with a relatively authoritative answer that I trust, similar if I was talking or praying. I think most of the time when we're on AI, we're kind of praying. We're sending a question into the echo to a being thinking it's smarter than us and it's going to come back with an empathetic, loving, correct answer. So the new Jesus Christ was born in the 90s, and that was Steve Jobs. And he was taken from us early, like Jesus Christ. The idolatry of innovators has absolutely gone crazy. And they will make incremental decisions that justify the harming and self-harm of teen girls, Sheryl Sandberg, the weaponization of our platforms to make the coarsening of our discourse, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, the radicalization of young men, the people running YouTube. We keep thinking that the newest tech CEO is going to save us, that this guy cares. Sam Altman was the gay son we all wanted, like super nice, super friendly, hush voices. Well, Senator, I'm worried about that as well, right? These guys would sleep with their cousin for a nickel. That's their job. Their job is to increase earnings. They're not here to save us. We're supposed to elect people who put in guardrails for them. So everyone is saying or asking me, can we trust Sam Altman? I'm like, no, and we shouldn't have to. We should have regulators putting in guardrails on AI. So Sam is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. The latest hero that's going to save us is Dario Amodei. We've decided he's the good guy now. The villain's journey in tech is the same. Some compelling person we think is a wonderful guy, and then we find out that they are doing their job, and that is doing anything they can legally to increase shareholder value, regardless of whether it prevents a tragedy to the commons or not. And then we get angry at them. The journey from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader gets shorter and shorter, but they all follow the same path.
So there is the man telling you that the tech CEOs have quietly stepped into the role that religion used to hold in your life and then sold you their software as the new sacrament. Steve Jobs was treated like the new Jesus, Sam Altman has become the new villain, and Dario Amodei is the next one being fitted for the cape and the helmet. These men are not your friends and they are not your priests. They are doing the one thing the system actually rewards them for doing, which is increasing the share price by any legal means available. And while millions of people are praying into their chatbots and trusting whatever comes back, this is who those men are really working for. Now, listen to this.
I talked to one of these people. He outlined his plan for me, right?
He's a billionaire.
Yeah, outlined his plan B, if things get really ugly, right? And my view was, okay, boss, let's play this out. Something happens, there's an event. It's too dangerous to stay here. You meet your pilots at the airport. I mean, shit really gets real. People scaring for food, people become feral. I'm like, you don't think your pilots are gonna kill you and your wife? Like, what do you think's gonna happen? You don't think the people in New Zealand are gonna be like, let's go take the rich guy's shit? Like, it strikes me that these are such misallocated efforts and capital. There are 900 billionaires in the United States, and I would imagine 300 of them give money. They're responsible for 20% of all political donations. So they have a disproportionate amount of control over our elected population. And the problem is the 0.1% are not invested in the health of America. Why? They don't have to put up with TSA lines. They fly private. They don't have to put up with shitty healthcare. They have concierge medicine and access to the best medicine in the world. They don't have to put up with 40% of third graders can't read or write. Their kids go to amazing schools that spend on average $75,000 a year on their kid versus $15,000 at a public school, $10,000 at a public school in a low-income area. They don't need police. They have doormen and security. My point is they are no longer invested in the well-being of America. In the United States, when I was growing up, my dad's boss had a slightly bigger house and he drove a Cadillac and we drove a Gran Torino, but we were members of the same country club and his house was a 5-minute drive away. And maybe my dad's boss got to fly business class and we flew coach. The delta in having money, having a decent, having a middle-class life and an upper class was like this. Now the delta is this. The bottom 99% of Western societies are essentially being optimized and monetized to make the life of the 1% just unbelievable. The life you can lead in the 1% is so dramatic and so incredible. Broader selection set of mates, your kids have better healthcare, better educational opportunities, you have influence, people want to know you. The incentives to not be rich, but to be very rich are so incredible. And the way you get very rich is through stock options, typically in technology, that I think the incentives are so great that people will make incremental decisions and ignore the fact that, 1 in 8 teen girls who are self-harming in the UK cite Instagram as a reason for that. Well, let's find research that maybe creates some doubts, because once I become a billionaire, I'll be a better person. So you can see how incrementally this path to Darth Vader is pretty tempting. A really encouraging piece of data I saw is that when you spend time on social media, it takes you to the extremes. The algorithms see money and more Nissan ads in figuring out if you're conservative or liberal, and then demonizing the other side and tickling your sensors, right?
Yeah.
What they're finding with AI is it's actually, people who spend more time on AI, it's actually moderating their views. Because AI is about taking the median or the average of every piece of data. Also, do you notice how nice AI is? No matter what you say or how stupid it is, it won't say, that's a really stupid idea, Stephen. It'll say, I can understand why you're asking this question. It's pushing people towards the middle. The biggest downside of AI, in my view, is loneliness. AI is convincing people they can have a reasonable facsimile of life on a screen with an algorithm. Why go through the effort of having friends when you have Discord and Reddit? Why go through the hassle of getting a job when you can make money on Coinbase or Robinhood supposedly, and why would you go through the effort of trying to have a romantic relationship when you have lifelike synthetic porn? And the young male brain, I think, is especially susceptible to this. Men aged 20 to 30 are spending less time outdoors than prison inmates. 42% of men 18 to 24, and we talked about this on your last show, have never asked a woman out in person. So my prediction for America is we will never be as prosperous. Incredible prosperity, incredible economic growth, and massive loneliness, depression, anxiety, and obesity.
So that is Scott Galloway, a man who has built and sold companies for hundreds of millions of dollars and who has sat across the table from the people now running the AI industry. And his message is the most uncomfortable one we have heard yet, because he is not telling you the danger is fake. He's telling you that the people at the top do not have your best interests at heart, that some of them have already bought the bunker and put the pilots on standby, and that the future they are selling you is not the future they are planning for themselves. He told you a billionaire walked him through the escape plan. He told you the wealthiest fraction of 1% has quietly disconnected from the country they extract their fortunes from. And he told you about an AI CEO who privately believes there is a real chance this technology ends the world and who does not care, because being remembered as the person who summoned the new intelligence matters more to them than whether the rest of us survive it. He thinks some of them are playing a video game with your future. Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, says we are near the end. Roman Yampolsky, the man who coined the term AI safety, says it is mathematically impossible to control. Connor Leahy, who built some of the first open source models on Earth, says we wake up one day and we are simply no longer in control. And Galloway adds the ugliest layer of all, which is that the men running the labs are not afraid the way you were afraid, because they have already bought their way out. The people building this are protected and positioned, and the people watching this are neither. Subscribe, because by the time the rest of the world understands what these men are actually saying, the wealthy will have already opened their go bags and you will be the one left holding the receipt for an experiment you never agreed to run.